Hey, it's Saturday night, and I want to make some dough for tomorrow night to make some Detroit-style pizza. And I'm going to use the recipe from Peter Reinhardt's Perfect Pan Pizza. And this is where the only place where I've ever had Detroit pizza is the recipe in this book and a modification that I made for sourdough with it. But if you've never had Detroit style pizza, it is really hearty. It's like basically a fluffy, deep fried focaccia with whatever you top it with. And usually it's pretty heavily topped with lots of cheese and all that good stuff. And it's been like a week and a half since we've been to the grocery store because of the weather here. So I'm sort of operating on what we have around, and this is the best option. So I think it's going to be pretty good though. So like I was saying before, I have switched to making this with sourdough and really like what I get out of that. But because of the weather, I guess my sourdough is not too healthy. It's not turning out very well, so I don't want to risk it on the pizzas. So I'm going to use instant yeast and stick with the recipe from the book. I do mix it differently than the book calls for. The book calls for using a mixer and then doing this stretching technique on the counter. But to me, it's a little messy and unnecessary. And I feel like I've gotten better results just mixing by hand and stretching in the bucket. I'm going to use my little Cambro dough bucket, which I love these things, and they're totally worth what little they cost. All right, well, we're going to pour some flour in, 567 grams of bread flour, 11 grams of salt, a teaspoon and a quarter of a teaspoon of instant yeast. I'm just going to mix these up, and then I'll get the water together. We're going to use super, super cold water with the intention of delaying the fermentation. We're going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. Let's see what the refrigerator water is. Sometimes it's just cold enough. So 60 degrees, which is exactly what the recipe calls for. So 454 grams of 60-degree water. And 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then I'm just gonna get my hands messy and reach in and combine the flour and the liquid. I just sort of stick my hand in there like a paddle and move it around. Once all the flour is wet, you can scrape your hands off and let it sit for just a minute or so to absorb some of the water. Then I just get myself a bowl of water that I can dip my hands in to keep my hand wet, and reach in and gather some up and pinch my hand through. Just to make sure it's all thoroughly mixed. It'll be sticky. You could also put olive oil on your hands. All right, so now that it's just fully mixed together as a not clumpy, but wet mass of shaggy dough, we're just gonna leave it there for a sec and come back in 5 minutes. And every 5 minutes, I'm just gonna reach in and stretch it. You'll see. Now that it's sat for 5 minutes, I'm going to take the top off, or if you're doing this in a bowl, you just have a towel over it, and get my hands wet and reach under the top side here and pull and stretch and try not to break it. The first one of these is going to be really messy, but they'll start to tighten up. Fold number 4. If I still haven't communicated this, I'm basically like thinking of the circle as having 4 sides and grabbing it and pulling it and folding it over as I work my way around, and then flipping the whole thing over. And since I did such a crap job of it earlier, I'm gonna do one more fold. It's definitely holding its own weight. It feels done to me. So that's it. Now I'm gonna put it in the fridge, and we'll make it tomorrow night, even though the best, if you can do it like 2 days ahead, the best outcome is the 2-day version, but I can never plan for that. I mean, if you're that organized, I salute you. All right, it's Sunday, and our dough has been hanging out in the fridge, chilling, and it's time to pan the pizza. This is 5 hours before I plan on baking it. It needs that long to warm up and rise, and we're gonna do this cool thing that Peter Reinhardt book calls for, which is to put half the cheese cubes into the dough before it rises, so that the dough rises around it. And that's really fun. I normally make 2 pizzas, and then we just have like leftover pizza, because Detroit pizza reheats really, really well. But I just got this backyard pizza oven that I want to try this week, so I'm gonna limit the amount of pizza we're having in the next couple of days, so that I can make some pizza later in the week and not, kill everyone or give us diabetes. So when you go to pan this dough, it's going to be really, really wet and sticky. So you want to put down a layer of olive oil to keep things moving. And I'm just going to dump this out on the countertop and cut it in half. It's bubbly. And as far as my pan goes, I have one of these 10 by 14 standard Lloyd pans, Detroit pizza pans. I guess this is like what most Detroit pizza places use. But, I've seen people make Detroit pizza in, a Pyrex pan. Mainly, you just need something that's going to be tall enough to handle the rise of the crust, because it's going to be pretty tall. Like 3 inches is about what you need. All right, cut that in half, and we're only working with that one half. I'm gonna give this other half to a neighbor, and then we're gonna lay down a lot of olive oil. I mean, a lot of olive oil. This pizza is like deep fried in olive oil, essentially. And also, if you don't put down enough olive oil, it will stick to the pan. And I've had that happen many times, no matter how nicely nonstick your pan is. So like 5 tablespoons, I think is what the book calls for. I just eyeball it, and as I'm panning the pizza, if it looks like things are not oiled enough, I'll add more. And this is kind of like a process over time. In order to get it to fit the pan, you have to basically push it as far as you can, maybe a little olive oil on top, in the direction you want it to go, and sort of dimple it like you're making focaccia. But it's gonna bounce back a bit, and what we're gonna do is, over the next hour, I'm gonna come back and do this over and over again, every 20 minutes or so. And it'll probably take 3 times for me to get this to really relax into the pan and fill everything up. I'm not gonna show you each one of those, because that's pretty boring. But you get the general idea, and you don't have to get it. It won't have to be like all the way to the corner. I used to freak out about like, it won't go in the corner. It will, when it bakes, push in that direction and square out. So you don't have to worry about that at all. Cool. Now I'm going to cover this with foil so that it doesn't dry out. You want to keep the dough as wet as it already is. and it's going to rise under this foil for the next 5 hours. But like I said, I'm coming back. I'm going to finish panning it, and next time you see me, we will cut up some cheese and add it to the fully panned pizza. So this is actually only twice that I've stretched this so far, and this is basically all you need to get to. Like if there's a corner missing or whatever, it's not a big deal. So it's time to get the cheese together. The traditional Detroit pizza cheese is a cheese called Wisconsin Brick that is not available in Oklahoma. I like Munster mixed with provolone, just straight from the deli. And unlike other kinds of pizza for Detroit pizza, because we're going to bake it in a hot oven for a long time, we're going to cube the cheese. Otherwise, it would just melt too quickly and then burn. This is enough cheese for 2 pizzas, but like I said, I'm dropping off one of these doughs with my neighbor, and I think I'll just go ahead and like give her the cheese too, because it's going to go bad, as evidenced by this here. So I'm just going to cube this into like 1/4-inch cubes or 1/2-inch cubes. I'm not going to make you watch me cube all this cheese, but I just wanted to give you the idea of about the size. So 12 ounces of cheese for 1 pizza, and the dough that I was making is enough dough for 2 pizzas. So I've got my 12 ounces of cheese, the mix of provolone and Munster, and I'm going to take half of this cheese and press it into the dough before it rises. And over the next 4 hours, this dough will rise up and not cover the cheese, but you'll see that it just gets like incorporated in. And when you eat the pizza, it's like it's inside the pizza, which is like, you know, like a trick out of some Pizza Hut special. I gotta say, like, half the reason I love this pizza so much is because when I was a kid, like, my ultimate pizza and the pizza that I fell in love with first was Pizza Hut pizza, because I grew up in Texas, and I mean, there weren't exactly lots of great pizza options. And I've always loved that kind of fried, deep dish style crust. And that's what this one's all about. This is kind of like the ultimate version of that. This looks good to me. So now I'm just going to put the foil back over, and we'll check back in with it in 4 hours. And we'll talk about how we're going to top this one. I mean, this one's going to be a little bit on the weird side, but it's going to be good. We've still got about an hour before it's time to bake the pizza, so I want to get the toppings together. When I planned for this meal, I was left with just a few things in the fridge after the snowstorm, and so I went with a pretty wacky idea that I'm sticking with, even though I've gone to the store since. There's a pasta dish in this Posto cookbook that we made recently that I really loved. This Orecchiette with lamb sausage and carrot puree, and I think so many pasta ideas are transferable to the world of pizza, so I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to make a fresh lamb sausage with some ground lamb and roasted red pepper and garlic and some spices, and let that hang out for a minute before we cook it. And then in a bit after that, I'm gonna make a similar carrot puree to this carrot puree, but I'm gonna make it a little bit brighter and more acidic, because I think this pizza is gonna be really heavy, and so we'll want something really to balance out what's going on with it. But let's get out the stuff that we need for the sausage. All right, I got lamb that I had in the freezer, some garlic, some roasted red peppers. You could use your own or store-bought. I just happen to have some. And we're gonna use a bit of sweet paprika and smoked paprika. And this, I need to open a bottle of wine, hold on. All right, I've actually got some old red wine here that I'll use. What else do we need here? I'm gonna do this with a blender, even though it's a very small amount of stuff, and it's always a pain in the ass to get a blender to work. You want to add some shallot to the lamb sausage?
Yeah.
Yeah, would that be good? I do think that we need some kind of allium for the pizza. I was thinking about cooking some onions, but I could cook shallots. If that pleases you. Sweet potato? I don't think sweet potato is gonna go in this one. Do you want sweet potato on your lamb pizza?
No.
No, me either. Oops, you okay? Shooting for around 3 tablespoons of roasted red pepper and a couple of cloves of garlic, about a tablespoon of red wine, and some sweet paprika to whatever level you would desire, and a little bit less of the smoked paprika. I just got a chunk, but that'll be all right. A good amount of black pepper. And a couple of teaspoons of salt-ish. And let's see if I can get this to blend up. I got a mixing bowl here, and I'm just going to, with my hands, work the mixture in. This little mixture of spices and red pepper smells really, really good, actually. I can see that my garlic, I probably should have chopped beforehand, is left in some pretty large chunks, but you know, textural variation. I don't mind biting into a bit of sausage that's super garlicky here and there. All right, now I'm just gonna cover that up. And set it aside. Maybe I'll set it in the fridge, actually. Now let's do the carrot puree. One thing that's fun about this recipe, this carrot puree idea, is it's carrots cooked in carrot juice. And then there's like there's orange zest involved, so like more orange. And beyond there just being like pureed carrots, there's also little chunks of carrots cooked al dente, just to have some texture. So I like the idea of there being little tiny cubes of al dente cooked carrots on the pizza, so we're gonna do that too. I'm thinking like an equal measure of carrot to lamb. I'm peeled. And I'm thinking that we'll have maybe two biggish ones for the little cubes. Oh, this one's got a split in it. And then the rest will be for the puree. We don't need like a lot of cubes. I don't know, I hope they get noticed on the... I think that's enough. I might take like half of another carrot. So when I say tiny cubes. I'm talking about this. I mean, I'm gonna do this with the whole carrot, but I just wanted to give an example of how small. Some of that's kind of imprecise, but yeah, like nice little crunchy bits. They're not gonna be crunchy, but al dente. All right, I'm gonna make some more of those. Cool, so there's the dice. And then for the stuff that we're gonna puree, we're just gonna cut little coins. Because these are just gonna cook until they're soft enough and then get pureed. You know, I'm thinking that's a lot of carrot. So let's confine it to that. Gather up the coins into a saucepan that'll fit. And I mean, like I said, the only reason I'm really making this is because I had this stuff. I'm not really a big carrot juice drinker, but I had it on hand for this recipe, and I'm gonna use it. You could do this with water, but it will not be as carroty, I guarantee you that. And I don't know, maybe you're skeptical that you want that much carrot, but I actually think concentrated carrot is really a nice flavor. Not that like overbearing, I don't know, your memories of childhood mushy carrots flavor, but like a fresh, bright flavor. I'm gonna do just a little bit more. I don't know what the hell is floating around in here. I think it's just a little thyme leaf from earlier. All right, so we're gonna cook those for a while, just until they're soft enough to puree. I'm trying not to add too much carrot juice because I'm gonna make the carrot juice part of the puree. And while the carrots are going, you can see they're boiling now, and I need to turn them down to simmer a little bit. While those are cooking, we're gonna work on the sausage. One of the things that I really liked about the pasta recipe that this is from is the way that the sausage is prepared. You know, you mix it together like we did, and then pat it out in a cold pan as a fairly thick disc, and you cook it for a while, like 30 or 40 minutes in that recipe, until it builds up a really thick, you know, almost char crust on the bottom, and then break it up, and you know, finish the rest of the sausage. But it leaves you with this textural contrast of like crunchy charred lamb and otherwise, you know, nicely cooked. I'm not gonna go too far with that here because we're gonna put it in a hot oven for 20 minutes. So I'm gonna keep it a little bit lighter. Go! All right, I gotta test one of these carrots.
Look, guys, can you eat a carrot?
Nowhere near. Needs more time. I do think I'm gonna take Abe's suggestion and throw some shallot in here because it just seems weird to not have some kind of allium involved. That's a good amount. I gotta turn the hood vent on. These are in a good spot. Let's get the dough. Alright, let's see what it looks like. That looks pretty good. Alright. I'm about ready to break the sausage up, and I'm just gonna do the shallots on the edge with a little bit of extra oil. Just to have a moment for them to cook on their own. pick it up. Knowing that this is going to be in the oven for 20 minutes, I really just didn't want it to get too much color. I'm also going to go pretty easy on it at the end here. I don't mind if it's just a little bit raw because it's going in the oven for a while at a pretty high temp. Just going to taste for seasoning. Needs more salt. And I would like a little more paprika. That's good. All right, I'm thinking these are probably done. Yeah, they're totally done. There hasn't been any salt in this so far. Now that we're about to do the cubes, I'm gonna go ahead and salt this, and it'll become part of the salt in the puree too. And these are only gonna cook for a couple of minutes. And to stop them cooking, I'm going to make a little ice bath. Just a few more moments now. I think that's good. Now I'm gonna let this liquid boil down a little bit until we can add it to the carrots and get most of it in there without making the puree too wet. Yeah, that still has a nice little bite. Ooh, again. Look at that. My. We're gonna put the carrot puree on after we cook it. So one thing you definitely gotta do with the Detroit is make a little wall of cheese all around the pizza. Hi. If you put the cheese right up against the edge like this, it'll melt and go down the sides of the pie and create that fried cheese exterior that you see in the pictures of Detroit pizza. This is really an incredibly huge amount of cheese. That's always the thing about this pizza. Now the sausage on top. The thing about this kind of pizza is that because it's so hot, you never put like tomato sauce on it before you bake it. Usually you put it on after. But that leaves the bread kind of exposed. And it's good to kind of cover most of the surface with toppings because otherwise you'll get like a weird browned, hardened spot. All right, I probably used like half of that, so half a pound. All right, this is going in the 500-degree preheated oven, and it's going to be about 20 minutes. I've cooked enough of these in this oven that I know that they cook evenly here, but the first time you do it, you should rotate it after 10 minutes or 9 minutes, just to make sure that it is cooking evenly. And now we can finish this puree. So the original recipe for this calls for using tangerine oil, which I don't have, so I'm just going to use a little bit of orange zest. All right, that's probably cooked down enough. I'm just going to add a little bit of this at first because I'm not sure how much we'll need. You don't want it to be soupy. And I'm going to go ahead and preemptively add some salt. Do you have a lemon open?
It's right over there on the counter.
Cool, I see that. I'm gonna do a little lemon juice too, and then the orange zest. But not the cubes. You save the cubes until after you puree it. Add a little more of the juice. About all the juice. Thank you. What are we having?
Joy Division.
Joy Division. It's really just like a martini that I want to drink.
Yes.
I'm gonna add the chunks. It needs just a touch more salt. It is like powerfully carroty and pretty powerfully orange just from the zest. And it's the right consistency to kind of dollop on the pizza. I love the little carrots. Got the salt right. That's good. All right, that looks great. Gonna do a layer of pecorino. I think I'm gonna do parsley before carrot. And if I don't like the way it looks, then I'll do parsley after. And then I'm just gonna do dollops. Maybe a little bit. Just because that's so high contrast. All right. I'm gonna try a bite and feed everybody. So here's the lamb sausage and carrot Detroit pizza. I need a bite with the carrot puree. This turned out about as good as I could have ever possibly expected. It's crispy and savory and sweet and super carroty. And it might sound weird, but it's really, really excellent. You want to try it? Kids eat it. What does a kid think?
I like it.
You like it? You prefer pepperoni?
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, more pepperoni in the future, I guess. Have a good night.